Come on guys, we all know the debris was big enough for both of them. There was no reason Jack had to go out like that. Number 10, unsinkable. Contrary to popular mythology, Titanic was never described as unsinkable, without qualification until after she sank. 3 trade publications, one of which was probably never published, described Titanic as practically unsinkable prior to her sinking. Many survivors recalled in video interviews as well as in testimony that they had considered the ship unsinkable. Shipbuilder Harland and Wolff did not claim she was unsinkable, but a promotional item from the White Star Line stressed the safety of Olympic and Titanic, claiming that as far as it is possible to do so, these 2 wonderful vessels are designed to be unsinkable. Number 9, David Sarnoff wasn't the first to hear about it. An often quoted story that has been blurred between fact and fiction states that the first person to receive news of the sinking was David Sarnoff, who would later lead media giant RCA. In modified versions of this legend, Sarnoff was not the first to hear the news, though Sarnoff willingly promoted this notion. But he and others did staff the Marconi wireless station atop the Wanamaker department store in New York City, and for 3 days relayed the news of the disaster and names of survivors to people waiting outside. However, even this version lacks support in contemporary accounts. No newspapers of the time, for example, mention Sarnoff. Given the absence of primary evidence, the story of Sarnoff should be properly regarded as a legend. Number 8, The Last Dance. One of the most famous stories regarding the Titanic is that of the ship's band. On the 15th of April, the 8-member band, led by Wallace Hartley, had assembled in the first-class lounge in an effort to keep passengers calm and upbeat. Later, they moved on to the forward half of the boat deck. The band continued playing even when it became apparent the ship was going to sink, and all members perished. There's been much speculation about what their last song was. A first-class Canadian passenger, Vera Dick, and several other passengers alleged that the final tune played was that of the hymn Nearer My God to Thee. Hartley reportedly once said to a friend if he were on a sinking ship, Nearer My God to Thee would be one of the songs he would play. But Walter Lord's book, A Night to Remember, popularized wireless operator Harold Bride's 1912 account in the New York Times that he heard the song Autumn before the ship sank. Number 7, a passenger predicted his demise. Another oft-cited Titanic legend concerns perished first-class passenger William Thomas Stead. According to this folklore, Stead had, through precognitive insight, foreseen his own passing on the Titanic. This is apparently suggested in 2 fictional sinking stories which he had penned decades earlier. The first, How the Mail Steamer Went Down in Mid-Atlantic by a Survivor in 1886, tells of a mail steamer's collision with another ship, resulting in high loss of life due to lack of lifeboats. The second, From the Old World to the New in 1892, features a White Star Line vessel, Majestic, that rescues survivors of another ship that had collided with an iceberg. Number 6, another ship. Some believe that there was another ship, the Norwegian sealer Samson, in the vicinity of Titanic when she sank. Proponents of the theory argue either that the Samson was a third ship in the area at the night of the sinking, in addition to the Titanic and the Californian, or that the Californian was not near at all, and it was the Samson which Titanic passengers spotted in the distance while the ship was sinking. Advocates of Captain Lord's innocence have avidly adopted the latter theory, beginning with Leslie Harrison, the General Secretary of the Mercantile Marine Association in the 1960s. Number 5, the curse. When the Titanic sank, claims were made that a curse existed on the ship. The press quickly linked the Titanic curse with the White Star Line practice of not christening their ships, linked directly into the sectarianism of the city of Belfast where the ship was built. It was suggested that the ship was given the number 390904, which when reflected resembles the letters No Pope, a sectarian slogan attacking Roman Catholics, used by extreme Protestants in Northern Ireland where the ship was built. Number 4, foreshadowing the disaster. At the time the Titanic sank, the 1st of May 1912 issue of the Popular magazine, an American pulp magazine, was on the newsstands. It contained the short story The White Ghost of Disaster, which described the collision of an ocean liner with an iceberg in the Atlantic Ocean, the sinking of the vessel, and the fate of the passengers. The story by Thornton Jenkins Haynes under the pseudonym Maine Clue Garnet created a minor sensation. Number 3. Heroic dog. A large black Newfoundland dog named Regal purportedly was responsible for saving many survivors, according to stories published in at least one contemporary newspaper and retold many times thereafter, including in a book of contemporary accounts by Logan Marshall. Many details differ from known facts, and the story might be untrue, but it is kind of cute to think about a little doggy saving people. Number 2. Pack ice. Captain L.M. Collins, a former member of the Ice Pilotage Service, based a conclusion on 3 pieces of evidence and going off his own experience of ice navigation and witness statements given at the 2 post-disaster inquiries, that what the Titanic hit was not an iceberg but low-lying pack ice. His book called The Sinking of the Titanic: The Mystery Solved in 2003 goes into further detail about the events. Number 1. It never sank? One of the most controversial and elaborate theories surrounding the sinking of the Titanic was advanced by Robin Gardner in his book Titanic: The Ship That Never Sank. Gardner draws on several events and coincidences that occurred in the months, days, and hours leading up to the sinking of the Titanic, and concludes that the ship that sank was in fact Titanic's sister ship, Olympic, disguised as Titanic, as an insurance scam by its owners. The International Mercantile Marine Group, controlled by American financier J.P. Morgan, that had acquired the White Star Line in 1902. Strap in, because this is gonna be a bumpy ride. Number 10. The Turtle. Turtle, also called American Turtle, was the world's first submersible vessel with a documented record of use in combat. It was built in 1775 by American David Bushnell as a means of attaching explosive charges to ships in a harbor, for use against the Royal Navy during the American Revolutionary Conflict. Connecticut Governor Jonathan Trumbull recommended the invention to George Washington, who provided funds and support for the development and testing of the machine. Several attempts were made using Turtle to affix explosives to the undersides of British warships in New York Harbor in 1776. All failed, and her transport ship was sunk later that year by the British with the submarine aboard. Bushnell claimed eventually to have recovered the machine, but its final fate is unknown. Number 9. USS Alligator. On the 3rd of July 1862, the Navy Yard replaced Alligator's oars with a hand-cranked screw propeller, thereby increasing her speed to about 4 knots, or 7.4 kilometers per hour. Dang, that is slow. President Lincoln observed the submarine in operation on 18th of March 1863. About this time, Rear Admiral Samuel Francis DuPont, who had become interested in the submarine while in command of the Philadelphia Navy Yard early in the conflict, decided that Alligator might be useful in carrying out its plans to take Charleston, South Carolina, the birthplace of secession. Acting Master John F. Winchester, who then commanded Sumter, was ordered to tow the submarine to Port Royal, South Carolina. The pair got underway on the 31st of March. Number 8. USS F1. F1 was in ordinary service from the 15th of March 1962 to the 13th of June 1917. When she returned to full commission, she served with the Patrol Force Pacific, making surface and submerged runs to continue her part in the development of submarine tactics. Her base during this time was San Pedro, California. On the 17th of December 1917, while maneuvering in exercises off Point Loma, San Diego, California, F1 and F3 collided, the former sinking in 10 seconds, her port side torn forward of the engine room. 19 of her men were lost, the remaining 3 were rescued by the submarines with which she was operating. Number 7. USS F4. F4 was stricken from the Naval Vessel Register on the 31st of August 1915 and was taken from the dry dock of Honolulu Harbor in early September 1915 so the other 3 F-class submarines could be dry docked, as they had been rammed by the Navy supply ship USS Supply in 1872. The F4 was moved, still hanging from the pontoons, to Pearl Harbor and anchored in Magazine Lock, until on or about 25th of November 1915, when she was disconnected from the pontoons and settled into the mud at the bottom of the lock. She remained there until the expansion of the harbor in 1940, when the remains of F4 were reburied in a trench dug in the lock bottom off the submarine base mooring S-14 Pearl Harbor. Number 6. Capeland. The submarine Bonefish SS-223 reported sighting an American submarine on the 2nd of December 1943 in the area assigned to Capelin at that time. The unidentified submarine quickly dived, probably after sighting Bonefish. Bonefish sent a message via sonar giving Commander Marshall's nickname Steam. The other submarine returned an acknowledgement. Following this, Capelin was never heard from again. The US Navy broke radio silence on the 9th of December 1943 in an attempt to contact Capelin, but without success. Number 5. Escalar. Escalar had her final training for combat at Pearl Harbor, from which she put out her first patrol on the 18th of September 1944. After topping off fuel at Midway Island, she joined Croker and Perch for a coordinated Wolfpack patrol in the Yellow Sea. On the 30th of September, when Escalar was estimated to be about north of the Bonin Islands, a listening post received a partial message from her. This from Escalar X, attacked with deck gun boat, similar to ex-Italian Peter George V, OTYI. Escalar was then forced to break off the transmission and the engagement with the gunboat. Number 4. Grayling. The USS Grayling, or SS-209, was the 10th Tamber-class submarine to be commissioned in the United States Navy in the years leading up to the country's December 1941 entry into WW2. She was the 4th ship of the United States Navy to be named for the Grayling. Her wartime service was in the Pacific Ocean. She completed 7 patrols in the following 20 months and is credited with the sinking of over 20,000 tons of Japanese merchant shipping and warships. Grayling received 6 battle stars for her WW2 service. She was declared lost with all hands in September 1943. Of the 12 Tamber-class submarines, only 5 survived the global conflict. Growler's 11th and final patrol began from Fremantle on 20th of October 1944 in a wolf pack with Hawke SS-256 and Hardhead SS-365. On the 8th of November, the wolf pack, again headed by Growler, closed in on a convoy for attack, with Growler on the opposite side of the enemy from Hawke and Hardhead. The order to commence attacking was the last communication ever received from Growler. After the attack was underway, Hawke and Hardhead heard what sounded like a torpedo explosion, and then a series of depth charges on Growler's side of the convoy, and then nothing. All efforts to contact Growler for the next 3 days proved futile. The submarine, veteran of 7 successful patrols, was listed as lost in action against the enemy, cause unknown. Number 2. Gudgeon. Gudgeon sailed for her 12th patrol on the 4th of April 1944. The submarine stopped off for fuel at Johnston Island on the 7th of April and was never seen or heard from again. On the 7th of June 1944, Gudgeon was officially declared overdue and presumed lost. U-Boat.net claims Gudgeon was sunk on the 18th of April 1944 at a known location by the Japanese southeast of Iwo Jima. Some sources say the submarine was more likely to have sunk by attack near the Maug Islands. Number 1. Runner. The USS Runner, or SS-275, was a Gatto-class submarine, the first ship of the United States Navy to be named for the Runner, an amberfish inhabiting subtropical waters, so called for its rapid leaps from the water. On the 27th of May 1943, Runner departed Midway for her 3rd patrol, assigned a patrol area in the Kuriil Islands chain and the waters off northern Japan. She was never heard from again. Runner was declared overdue and presumed lost in July 1943. She was stricken from the Naval Vessel Register on the 30th of October 1943. Beware of the triangle. Number 10. The Ellen Austin. According to legend, a sailing ship, the Ellen Austin, found a derelict vessel and placed a crew to sail the vessel to port. 2 versions of what happened to the vessel are: the vessel was either lost in a storm or was found again without a crew. Lawrence David Couch, author of The Bermuda Triangle Mystery Solved, found no mention in 1880 or 1881 newspapers of this alleged incident. The Ellen Austin did exist. A check from Lloyd's of London records proved the existence of Maida, built in 1854, and that in 1880, Maida was renamed Ellen Austin. There are no casualty listings for this vessel, or any vessel at that time. That would suggest a large number of missing men were placed on board a derelict that later disappeared. Although one website includes the alleged derelict vessel incident, it does find that Rupert Gold talked about the legend on radio in the 1930s. Number 9. The USS Proteus. USS Proteus AC-9 lost with all 58 persons on board in heavy seas, having departed St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands with a cargo of bauxite on the 23rd of November. The following month, her sister ship, USS Nereus, was lost with all 61 persons on board, having also departed St. Thomas with a cargo of bauxite on the 10th of December. According to research by Rear Admiral George Van Ders, USN, who was familiar with this type of ship from their service in the USN, the acidic coal cargo would seriously erode the longitudinal support beams, making these aging and poorly constructed colliers extremely vulnerable to breaking up in heavy seas. Number 8. Witchcraft. December 22nd, Miami hotel owner and yachtsman Dan Burrick set out his cabin cruiser Witchcraft with a priest named Patrick Horgan. The ship was taken 1 mile off the Miami coastline so that Burrick and Horgan could view the Christmas lights visible from the shore. That night, Burrick radioed a distress call to the Coast Guard, informing them that the boat's propeller had stuck something underwater, and that the vessel would need to be towed in. The Coast Guard requested that he send up a flare in roughly 20 minutes so that the boat could be more easily located. The official who received the call reportedly later noted that Burrick did not seem too concerned about the Witchcraft, a boat that Burrick had fitted with a special flotation device in its hull. When the Coast Guard arrived at the location from which Burrick called, he, Horgan, and the Witchcraft were nowhere to be found. Over the following days, a search was conducted over hundreds of square miles of ocean, but the boat and its passengers were never found. Number 7. Flight 19. Flight 19 was the designation of a group of 5 General Motors TBM Avenger torpedo bombers that disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle on December 5, 1945, after losing contact during a United States Navy overwater navigation training flight from Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale, Florida. All 14 airmen on the flight were lost, as well as all 13 crew members of a Martin PBM Mariner flying boat that subsequently launched from Naval Air Station Banana River to search for Flight 19. A report by Navy investigators concluded that flight leader Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor mistook small islands offshore for the Florida Keys after his compasses stopped working, resulting in the flight heading over open sea and away from land. Number 6. C-54A. The Douglas C-54 Skymaster is a 4-engine transport aircraft used by the United States Army Air Forces in WW II and the Korean conflict. Like the Douglas C-47 Skytrain derived from the DC-3, the C-54 Skymaster was derived from a civilian airliner, the Douglas DC-4. Besides transport of cargo, the C-54 also carried presidents, prime ministers, and military staff. On the 28th of March 1964, a C-54A disappeared over the Pacific on an executive passenger flight from Honolulu International Airport, Hawaii to Los Angeles International Airport, California. The pilot reported a fire in the second engine, which might make it necessary to ditch. Nothing more was heard from the aircraft, nor was any trace of it found despite an extensive search. 3 crew and 6 passengers were lost in the accident. Number 5. Star Ariel. Star Ariel was an Avro 2-door Mark IVB passenger aircraft owned and operated by British South American Airways, or BSAA, which disappeared without a trace over the Atlantic Ocean while on a flight between Bermuda and Kingston, Jamaica on the 17th of January 1949. The loss of the aircraft, along with that of BSAA Avro 2-door Star Tiger in January 1948, remains unsolved to this day, with the resulting speculation helping to develop the Bermuda Triangle legend. Number 4. The USS Pickering. USS Pickering was a topsail schooner in the United States Revenue Cutter Service, and then the United States Navy during the quasi-war with France. She was named for Timothy Pickering, then the Secretary of State. Pickering departed from Boston on the 10th of June 1800, ordered to join Commodore Thomas Truxton's squadron on the Guadalupe station in the West Indies. She sailed from Newcastle, Delaware on the 20th of August and was never heard from again. She is presumed to have been lost with all hands in a gale in September, but this was never proven. This storm is also thought to have sunk USS Insurgent, which likewise vanished without a trace. The exact cause of the cutter's disappearance remains a mystery. Number 3. The USS Wasp. On the 12th of September 1814, the Wasp encountered three brothers, a brig, and scuttled her. On 14th of September 1814, she sank the brig Bacchus. On the 21st of September 1814, an 8-gun brig Atalanta ran afoul of Wasp, and she too suffered the ignominy of capture. Deeming Atalanta too valuable to destroy, Blakely placed her under the command of midshipman David Geisinger and sent her to the United States. She entered Savannah, Georgia safely on the 4th of November 1814. After Wasp and Atalanta parted company, on the 9th of October 1814, she spoke the Swedish brig Adonis, bound from Rio de Janeiro to Falmouth, England, about 3 weeks after the Atalanta capture. Wasp reported that she was headed for the Caribbean. Wasp was never seen again. Number 2. The USS Cyclops. The ship put to sea from Rio de Janeiro on the 16th of February 1918 and entered Salvador on the 20th of February. 2 days later, she departed from Baltimore, Maryland with no stop scheduled, carrying the manganese ore. The ship was thought to be overloaded when she left Brazil, as her maximum capacity was 8,000 long tons, or 8,100 tons. Before leaving port, Commander Worley had submitted a report that the starboard engine had a cracked cylinder and was not operative. This report was confirmed by a survey board, which recommended, however, that the ship be returned to the United States. Cyclops then set out for Baltimore on the 4th of March, and was rumored to have been sighted on the 9th of March by the molasses tanker Amulco near Virginia, but this was denied by Amulco's captain. In any event, Cyclops never arrived in Baltimore and no wreckage of the ship has ever been found. Number 1. The Connemara 4. A pleasure yacht was found adrift in the Atlantic south of Bermuda on September 26, 1955. It is usually stated in the stories that the crew vanished while the yacht survived being at sea during 3 hurricanes. The 1955 Atlantic hurricane season shows Hurricane Ione passing nearby between 14th and 18th of September, with Bermuda being affected by winds of almost gale force. In his second book on the Bermuda Triangle, Weiner quoted from a letter he had received from Mr. J.E. Challenor of Barbados. On the morning of September 22nd, Connemara 4 was lying on a heavy mooring in the open roadstead of Carlisle Bay. Because of the approaching hurricane, the owner strengthened the mooring ropes and put out 2 additional anchors. There was little else he could do, as the exposed mooring was the only available anchorage. In Carlisle Bay, the sea in the wake of the Hurricane Janet was awe-inspiring and dangerous. The owner of Connemara 4 observed that she had disappeared. An investigation revealed that she had dragged her moorings and gone to sea.
Starting our list right, we have a time vortex. In 1970, Floridan pilot Bruce Jernon Jr., his father and friend were flying towards Bahimi Island in the Bahamas. They noticed a rather unusual crowd, to which he referred to as an electronic fog. This is where it gets weirder. When they entered the fog, it became dark very quickly, resulting in little visibility. They would notice these bright white flashes getting progressively worse as they went further in the tunnel of smoke. Navigational tools such as their compasses would begin to malfunction by spinning around rapidly, similar to that of Christopher Columbus when he was around the same area. They would come to the quick conclusion that they needed to escape this fog, but once they did, air traffic control towers detected them over the Miami beach, which would be physically impossible, as his last possible known location was in the Gulf Stream, which is over 100 miles away, which would mean he would have had to travel at nearly 2,000 miles per hour, which is not possible. In our number 9 spot, we have the Ellen Austin. The Ellen Austin was a 210-foot American multi-masted ship. In 1880, the ship was set for New York. However, weeks into its travel, it came across an unidentified ship drifting just north of the Bermuda Triangle. Since the unknown ship wasn't sailing, the captain of the ship ordered a crew to check out the mysterious vessel. When they had boarded, no one was to be found. No signs of violence, nor any signs of the ship's logs. They would attempt to bring the unknown ship back to New York, but would be interrupted by a fierce storm which separated the 2 ships. After a few days, the captain of the Ellen Austin would spot the ship drifting aimlessly again. They sailed towards the ship once again to find out the ship was empty, with no sign of the crew he had sent, no sign of struggle or distress. This ship was then marked as cursed to the crewmates, but the captain, being oblivious, would still want to seize the opportunity and order another group to sail it. As they set sail with both ships once again, the weather turned poor and separated the ships again, with the ghostly ship disappearing for good. Imagine sending out another group of men to sail this boat after the first group of men perished out of existence. Taking our number 8 spot, we have the Flight 19 mystery. In 1945, the United States sent a group of 5 torpedo bombers known as Flight 19 over the Bermuda Triangle for navigation training. As the bombers flew out over water, all 5 bomber planes would disappear, along with all 14 airmen. In one of the last radio messages received, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, the flight commander, reported, "We are entering white water. Nothing seems right. We don't know where we are. The water is green, no, white." Some have speculated that aliens use the Bermuda Triangle as a portal to our planet, where they would capture humans along with our technology to conduct further research on our species. This could be one of the reasons for the disappearance of Flight 19, but we will never know if there's an interdimensional portal without going in it first. At number 7, we have the USS Cyclops ghost ship. The disappearance of the USS Cyclops, one of the Navy's biggest fuel ships, marks the largest loss of life in the history of the US Navy in a single incident. In March 1918, this massive ship set out to sail from Brazil to Baltimore through the Bermuda Triangle with about 309 crew members on board. Once they set off, no signs of issues were reported by the ship. However, the ship was never heard from again. An entire search of the area was put into action, but nothing was ever found. What was odd was that the captain of the USS Cyclops never sent out a distress signal. Ships and planes that traveled through the Bermuda Triangle have said they have spotted this large naval ship still sailing within. But every time they attempt to get closer or contact the ship, it would begin to vanish out of thin air. The USS Cyclops was a rather large ship, which makes this ghostly sighting eerie. At number 6, we have a government testing ground. It is believed by a few that the Bermuda Triangle is actually a testing ground for some governments that border the Atlantic Ocean. It's said to test their advanced technology ranging from underground nuclear bombs to specialized vehicle and weapons. It is said that the governments attempt to add this negative stigma towards the Bermuda Triangle for the sole purpose of keeping people away from their testing grounds. Secret government involvement could explain the disappearance and fairly odd phenomena that occur within the triangle. Right in the hump of our list, we have sea monsters. Could something be lurking in the depths of the triangle that could explain the disappearances? Well, there is a massive sea serpent said to roam in the Bermuda Triangle called the Bermuda Beast. The Bermuda Beast is described as a massive sea creature that is 4 times larger than the Eiffel Tower, making this the largest creature to ever exist if it was truly found. The Bermuda Beast could be the explanation for the missing ships and planes, since it is said to leap out of the water and snatch ship and planes. If that doesn't sound convincing, remember that only 5% of the oceans are discovered, which makes the ocean just as mysterious as the Bermuda Triangle. Who really knows what lies under? Enchanting our number 4 spot, we have the witchcraft. No, there are no witches on their little witch boats in the Bermuda Triangle. However, this story is just as odd. On December 22nd, 1967, a 23-foot luxury yacht named the Witchcraft left Miami with her captain Dan Burrock and his friend Father Patrick Horgan. The plan was to view the Christmas lights from the water, but after reaching a distance of only 1 mile off the coast, the Coast Guards would be notified that the ship had hit something. After reaching the yacht's last known location, it was nowhere to be found. The weird part was that the ship was theoretically unsinkable with an arsenal of life-saving devices ranging from lifeboats to flares. As well, Captain Dan Burrock was a cautious yachtsman, making the disappearance surprising to those who knew him. The yacht is reported by some ships to be drifting through the Devil's Triangle, but no one has wanted to sail close enough to figure out the true mystery of the witchcraft. At number 3 of our list, we have Mary Celeste. On the fateful day of December 5, 1872, Mary Celeste set sail from New York Harbor to carry cargo to Italy, but unfortunately, the ship never made it to the destination. After several search and rescue efforts, the ship was found adrift in Bermuda Triangle, but none of its crew of 11 people were found. Personal belongings, food containers, precious cargo, and lifeboats were still on the ship. As well, rotten food was found on board, and foul play was not detected throughout the whole ship. The boat was basically still seaworthy, for it had seemed that everyone just disappeared without a single piece of evidence, almost as if they all jumped off on the ship and just abandoned it. Since it had ended up in the Bermuda Triangle, it can be said that it has become a product of its curse. The famous Atlantis takes our number 2 spot. The infamous sunken city is believed to be situated within the Bermuda Triangle. Atlantis was said to be surrounded by hundreds of thousands of crystals that radiated large amounts of energy. Their energy radiating from the crystals could explain the area's tendencies to disrupt communication systems, compasses, and even completely immobilize ships and planes. Then in 1968, scuba diver J. Manson Valentine discovered a series of laid stones at the bottom of the ocean that appeared as though they formed a road, also known as Bimini Road. Doing further investigation, sci-fi show Quest for Atlantis discovered a second layer beneath that road, which could be more promising evidence of a sunken city. Coming in at our #1 spot, and don't be disappointed, but it all may just be in our head, with no mystery at all. The theory of the Bermuda Triangle having no mystery is definitely something more believable. Scientist Carl Kruszelnicki said that everything could be explained by human error, bad weather, and heavy air and sea traffic. As well, the Bermuda Triangle is known as a high traffic area. Ships and planes go through this body of water every day at all times. And where there are people, there will be incidents. The area is known to be an active hurricane zone with a Gulf Stream running directly through it, making it a place of unpredictable weather. Or better yet, what if the cause for the disappearances was related to the negative stigma attached to the triangle? Basically, what if people went into the area with the preconceived thought that it was dangerous, which would then psych themselves out, causing them to do human error?
Now starting off with number 10, we have the USS Cyclops. The USS Cyclops was one of the biggest Navy fuel ships. In March 1918, set sail from Brazil to Baltimore through the Bermuda area with around 309 crew aboard. The ship had sent their first and only message ever, with no distress of any kind. All of a sudden, the ship was gone, never to be heard or seen from again. They searched everywhere and found absolutely nothing. The captain of the ship never sent out any help signal, and no one aboard ever responded to any radio calls sent out by nearby boats. You'd think that with a ship that big and that many people aboard, that they would at least find something, but they found absolutely nothing. At number 9, we have Great Isaac Cay Lighthouse. This is actually said to be the only Bermuda Triangle incident to have happened on land. Great Isaac Cay is a small island in the Bahamas and is only accessible by boat. Despite it being 151 feet tall, it's so tiny you can't even see it on Google Earth. The main attraction of the island is the lighthouse, right in the middle of it, which was built in 1859. On August 4th, 1969, the lighthouse was found to be abandoned by its two keepers who were never located. There was Hurricane Anna that passed by Great Isaac Island on August 1st and 2nd, but by August 4th it was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So who really knows what happened to the lighthouse keepers? But some do say that they disappeared due to the mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle. Here at number 8, we have Piper PA-46 310P Malibu. The pilot of Piper PA-46 Malibu had a flight plan from the US to the Bahamas on April 10, 2007. And it was said that the thunderstorms had severe turbulence was forecasted that day. However, the pilot did not request any weather briefing. A weather briefing is what most pilots ask for when they are about to fly. It basically just shows them what the weather is supposed to be like in that area. There was no request from the pilot to air traffic control for alternate routes to avoid the weather. After many lightning strikes in that area, the plane began a very steep descent. It was very clear that they were flying into a level 6 thunderstorm. Communications were lost and they found no wreckage or people from the plane. Now at number 7, we have Douglas C-54 Skymaster. On January 26, 1950, the Douglas C-54 Skymaster vanished during their flight from Alaska to Montana. The aircraft had 8 crew and 36 passengers aboard. The plane made their first contact 2 hours into their 8-hour flight, with the pilot saying that the flight was going well and they had just passed over Yukon. After that, there was no further contact. An hour after the plane didn't arrive in Montana, after its scheduled time, they sent out a search with 85 planes and 7,000 people searching 350,000 square miles. Many attempts were made to find C-54. However, after sending out 3 planes and all of them reporting mixed radio signals, sighting of survivors, but when looking closer there was nothing, and all of them had either crashed or had something gone wrong and the crew got injured. They eventually stopped the search. Here at number 6 is Ellen Austin. In 1881, the Ellen Austin set sail from Liverpool headed to New York. The ship was transporting people that were immigrating to the US. The ship was at sea for several weeks before the captain decided they were going to take an unplanned detour through the Sargasso Sea, which is very well known for having incredibly crazy weather conditions, causing the ship to go into the Bermuda Triangle. The captain had then spotted another ship inside the Bermuda Triangle, but it was sailing very strangely. The ship seemed abandoned due to its erratic sailing patterns. He'd sent some of his crew members to investigate, and they found no one on board and with no sign of struggle or violence. So he said they should sail back together. A storm came along later and separated the ships. When the storm passed, the same thing happened. A mysterious ship appeared again, abandoned with no sign of damage. At number 5, we have the SS Vatarna. On November 8, 1888, the SS Vatarna vanished somewhere off the coast of Saurashtra with around 740 aboard the ship. The ship was traveling from Mandi to Bombay. When the incident happened, no one really knows much because the ship disappeared without a trace. No wreckage or bodies were recovered. Here at number 4, we have the USS Porpoise. The USS Porpoise was actually the second ship with this name. The ship spent a long time hunting down slave trading vessels in the 1850s, but was then given to the North Pacific exploring expedition. The ship set sail to explore the island of Ladrones, Marina, and Bonin. After setting sail, that would be the last time anyone ever saw the ship and the 69 crew that were aboard. No sign of debris or any kind of indication that the ship ever even existed at all. Most people usually go with the story of a typhoon, but I think we all know what really happened. Coming in at number 3, Flight 19. Flight 19 was a group of 5 Avenger torpedo bombers that took off from Fort Lauderdale on December 5th, 1945. They had done lots of bombing journeys and expected this one to go as boring as the rest of them have, but to their surprise, it did not. Pilot Charles C. Taylor thought that his compass wasn't working properly and thought that the plane was flying in the complete wrong direction. Some of his crew fought this decision because they didn't think that it was very smart. Taylor then agreed with them and turned the plane back around. However, for reasons unknown, Taylor turned the plane back the other way again. Their transmissions started to become faint, and they were going to run out of fuel before they found their way back. Taylor sent out a final message saying that when the plane dropped below 10 liters of fuel, that they were going to jump off for a greater chance of survival. Then transmission ended. The Navy assumed the plane had dropped into the ocean, so they prepared a search and rescue. 2 boats went out to look for them, and after 20 minutes of searching, one of those boats dropped off the radar. Out of all 13 crew, 5 pilots, and the plane itself, nothing was ever found. Here at number 2 is the disappearance of Caribbean Flight 912. On November 3rd, 1978, experienced pilot Ivory Rivers was making a solo flight in order to position the plane in St. Thomas to pick up passengers. Not a cloud in the sky, and it was nice and warm out. The control tower radioed to the pilot a flight suggestion in order to avoid a small patch of rain. Rivers thought it was a good idea, so he made the change. He approached the airport in St. Thomas and the plane was cleared for landing. At the same time, another plane was leaving the airport, and when the control tower looked back, he could no longer see the plane's lights, and it was gone from the radar. They executed a search party, but despite their efforts, nothing was found with the plane being only 1 mile away from land. Now at number 1, we have Mitsubishi MU-2B40. This one is a little more recent than the rest, which is why I personally think it's the scariest. Flight MU-2B40 disappeared on May 15, 2017. Jennifer Bullman, a CEO of the management company Skylight. She owned a small private plane and wanted to take it from Puerto Rico to South Florida with her 2 sons, with her boyfriend piloting the plane, as he was an experienced pilot. At 2:10 p.m. that day, the plane was only 37 miles east of the Bahamas. The Miami Air Traffic Control could no longer get in touch with the plane and couldn't track it on the radar. It's as if the plane just vanished into thin air. It was reported that there were absolutely no weather issues at all. Some would even say a perfect day. The next day, they began a search for the aircraft. After 30 long hours of searching, the US Coast Guard, who was flying the helicopter, located floating debris in the Atlantic Ocean. They found things like seats from the plane. However, in terms of finding anyone or any human remains, they found nothing. That's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments which one you found the most mysterious. This is Top 10 Scary Urban Legends. I'm your host, Michaela, and I'll see you next time.